Much for being here, Vinny. And I figured if you could start by sharing your name and your pronouns.
Absolutely. My name is Vinny Johl, and my pronouns are she and her.
Wonderful. And can you tell us a little bit about yourself and some of your interests? Feel free to describe your background and any projects you're working on.
Absolutely. So I currently work in healthcare. I'm an ombudsman mediator for Kaiser Permanente, and I oversee the Sacramento and Roseville service area. So all the hospitals, inpatient and outpatient areas are under my responsibility for specifically mediation, typically surrounding adverse events. And so that's what I do professionally. Personally, I'm one of the CGI U commitment mentors. I am actually a CGI U senior commitments advisor. I've been serving in the mentor capacity for about 10 years. Wow. And my journey with CGI U, which is the Clinton Global Initiative University, as you know, started in 2010 when I was a graduate student at the University of Pacific. Mm-hmm. And this is when I really fell in love with philanthropy, social entrepreneurship, and I think making an impact through the work that you do. When I was in graduate school, I was working on my MBA, and I learned that there was a survey that went out to first-year students, and first-year students didn't know where their food was coming from. I grew up on a farm. I'm a fourth-generation farmer in Sutter County, super proud of my roots here. And it just seemed crazy to me that students at the University of Pacific in Stockton, Central California, where a lot of food for America comes from, that students didn't know where their food was coming from. So I created a garden. And the garden project was one that was kind of a hobby for me. I grew up on the farm. My grandfather had a huge garden, and it was really important to me that people knew where their food was coming from and how it was grown. So I started the garden project, and that's how I got involved with CGI U. That was my first commitment to action. And after that first CGI U meeting, I just fell in love and have continued with the organization and continued to serve in different roles over the last 13 or so years, from being a student for 2 years to taking a gap year, and then starting my role with the mentoring program. I have loved it. So that's kind of what I like to do as far as philanthropy and giving back, is helping students achieve their dreams and their commitments to action, and helping guide them along the way to make an impact. I live in Northern California still. I took a little bit of a hiatus and lived in Memphis, Tennessee for a little while. Love Memphis. I go back and visit a couple times a year usually, but Northern California is definitely home for me. And I think that right after grad school, one of the things that was really interesting is, as an MBA, you're supposed to get a job for a Fortune 100 company, and you're supposed to go into the corporate world. And I did that for a really short period of time, and I hated it. Every single day, I was dreading going to work. I had this job that my peers were super envious of. They wanted to get into this program that I was in for this large corporation, and I, at the end of the day, just wasn't happy. It wasn't where my passion was. It wasn't where my drive was. And I really believe that everything happens for a reason, and opportunities come your way when you're ready for them and wanting to accept them. And I started working for a university system that actually happened to be based out of my hometown. They had a satellite campus there in a small rural community. So I got to go back home and do that for a few years, and really fell in love with that job and fell in love with the work that I was doing. And for me, it was making an impact and finding purpose and passion in the work that I was doing. I did that for a while, then went down to Memphis and started my career in fundraising. I had a very successful career in fundraising for almost a decade. Loved fundraising, loved raising money, loved throwing parties, and doing community work. And then I had an opportunity to come to Kaiser Permanente and work as a care experience practice leader. And at first I was like, what does that even mean, care experience practice leader? And essentially what it was I would be overseeing patient satisfaction for a hospital system and making the hospital a little bit less of a scary place, and improving communication systems across the hospital. And that was really important to me because right before graduate school, my grandfather, who I was obsessed with, he was 6 weeks shy of his 92nd birthday, and he actually suffered a heart attack. And he was very, very healthy, and he was driving tractor when it happened. Not at that moment, but in the days leading up to it. And he had bypass surgery, and during the surgery suffered a stroke. I ended up at that point dropping out of the graduate program that I was in to become his full-time caregiver. And I knew firsthand how scary and traumatizing hospitals were, and how improved communication in hospital systems not only helped the patients, but the families who were taking care of their patients and in these really stressful situations. So I just fell in love with healthcare and my role. I've been at Kaiser about 5.5 years, and the last 5.5 years, I've had 3 positions. I worked both in the inpatient and the outpatient, and then in my current role.
Wow. Your effort has no doubt brought relief to plenty of people. Thank you so much for that really robust overview. It was incredible to hear everything that you've taken a part in and been a leader of. Something that you mentioned a little bit earlier in the Clinton Global Initiative University, I wanted to hear more about. So, having been a mentor for dozens of delegates at CGI U, can you describe how your past experiences have influenced your work with fellow young people?
Yeah, I think one of the most important things for me was when I started my garden project, nobody believed in it. I was just a student who wanted to play in the dirt and plant vegetables on this beautiful university campus, and nobody really thought that I was going to see it through or encouraged me or even showed me the ropes on how to create change within a system like a university. And it wasn't until I got into CGI U and kind of had that support and backing and the mentors through CGI U that I was actually able to accomplish my goals, create the garden, which is still up and running and growing every year, which is just wonderful, and create a sustainable plan for this garden to really not only stay at the University of Pacific, but also expand to other campuses. And for me, one of the things that I think I learned the most is when mentoring young people, a lot of these people have great ideas and they have the passion and the drive, but they don't always have the mentors and the coaching and the support and the cheerleading behind them to help them accomplish their goals. And that's really where I see my role as a mentor, is helping be their support system and helping them guide them along the way.
Encouragement really does take someone far.
Yeah.
And can you share about how you exactly became involved with the Kaiser Permanent North Valley service area and what encouraged you?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was working for another hospital system in Northern California, and I was the fund development officer. So doing a lot of fundraising, a lot of community work. And one of my friends at the hospital, she was a director, and she came to me and said, "Hey, I just applied to this job at Kaiser Permanente for a care experience practice leader. And I applied at both the Sacramento facility and the Roseville facility. I'm going to take the Sacramento facility, but I told the chief operating officer in Roseville all about you, and she wants to meet you." And I said, "What are you talking about? I don't know what care experience is. I don't know what HCAHPS are. HCAHPS are the measures that measure patient satisfaction in the hospitals in the US. And she said, "I think you'd be great at it. Talk to the COO." So I applied, I went in for an interview, and I immediately knew that I was home. I immediately knew that that's where I was supposed to be and that this job was what I was supposed to be doing. And I was really lucky because I just fell into this leadership team that was extremely supportive. They embraced me and supported my big ideas and my outside of the box thinking, and the strategies that I put in place for frontline engagement. And one of the great things about my current role and my leadership team that I work with is they're constantly challenging us to improve and grow and really think about our futures. And that's one of the reasons I love the work that I do.
And the work that you do is filled with so much variety. So similarly, but a little bit different, can you also share about your time as Commissioner and Vice Chair of the Economic Development Commission for the city of Yuba?
Yeah. So that was really an important and special role for me. So I grew up in Yuba City and am very proud of that fact. Yuba City is a small town in Northern California. It's primarily agriculturally based. That's again where my family farms. My great-grandfather immigrated to the States in 1906 from India, and that's where he chose to settle. And I have always had this community-minded, community-focused mindset where I wanted to be involved in my community. I wanted to be engaged. I wanted to participate. And the Economic Development Commission was looking for commissioners, and I actually wanted to make sure that it was something that I did, and I did on my own. So I applied, and I didn't tell a soul that I was applying to be appointed. And I had just moved back from Memphis, and I had seen the city of Memphis and the engagement in the city of Memphis, specifically with young people, that really inspired me and made me think you can go back to your hometown and make the same kind of changes and contribute to your community. And so that's really what prompted me to apply. I went in through the interview process, got to meet a lot of the city leaders, many of whom I was not familiar with. And they took a chance on me and allowed me the opportunity to be a commissioner. And for me, it was huge because I think I was like in my early 30s at the time. And it was something that was really aspirational. You don't see a lot of people in their 30s serving as commissioners, let alone vice chairs of a commission. And I love Yuba City with all of my heart. It has given me every opportunity I could have ever imagined. And my family, right? As a child of immigrants who came to the US to seek a better life and opportunities, I felt like it was my duty to help contribute to that community and improve it in whatever ways that I could. So what we really did is we, as the Economic Development Commission, is we connected with local businesses. We wanted to hear from our businesses firsthand. What are you struggling with? What do you need support with? What are things that we can help you with? How do we help create a better business environment, as well as looking at businesses that want to come into our community and telling them more about what it was that we're working on.
You have no doubt been so involved with so many different circumstances of social engagement and leadership. So I want to just give you this space to share all of the accomplishments that you'd like to highlight from these positions you've held.
That's where the hard part comes in, right? The little bit of the brag sheet. For me, I think some of the biggest accomplishments that I've had are through mentoring young people and mentoring people that were younger than me. I was in a position, I think up until I was in graduate school, where I didn't have any professional mentors or really people to look up to or people that were invested in me. And it wasn't until I got to the University of Pacific where I got my first real mentor. And the impact that this young woman had on me was so profound. And one of the things, her name is Fiona Kelly, one of the things that I would always ask Fiona was, what can I do to pay you back? You have invested in me so much. You have helped me create this garden. You have coached me in what to wear, how to interact and engage in professional meetings and all of these things that I just had no clue about. And what Fiona used to tell me was, when you have the opportunity, help someone else. And I really took that to heart. And I decided from that point in time that if anyone came to me and sought mentorship, or I found someone that I thought maybe had potential or wanted to be mentored, I'm always offering that up. And I'm always saying, let me teach you what I've learned. Let me help guide you. Let's work through things together. And I think for me, being able to mentor and help others achieve their goals and accomplish their dreams has been probably one of my biggest achievements. The garden, especially. The garden was really a way for me to honor my grandfather and to know that that garden is still there, and that garden has opened so many doors for me, especially with the Clinton Foundation. The connections that I've made there, the opportunities that they've given me. Last year, I was blown away. They asked me to moderate a panel with former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton and Chelsea Clinton. It was just a magical moment. As a child of immigrants, a family who came here with just dreams to have opportunities for their kids and the future generations, it was really a full circle moment to we made it, right? And I think those are probably the things that I'm the most proud of when it comes to just accomplishments. And I can name off mentors and students that I've worked with, mentees and students that I've worked with over the years, who I'm just so proud of, who have turned their commitments to action or their projects into full-time gigs or gained full-time employment, right? Because that's a lot of the things that I help a lot of young people with is, how do you write your resume? How do you apply for jobs, right? And what do you do when you go into the interview? How do you behave? What are examples that you use? How do you convey that you have the experience and the drive and the ambition to get jobs that you want?
Skill sharing is a gift that is continuously giving. So thank you so much for that.
Absolutely.
And, yeah. Currently, what are the aspects of your work that are exciting you the most? And are there any parts that you are aiming to change?
Yeah, I think professionally, one of the things in my current role that excites me the most is the ability to help patients and families work through traumatic events. So there's been an adverse event, something's happened, and we're able to find resolution or closure and just help them work through the process of figuring out what happened, why it happened, and creating systems of change. That's really important to me, really making sure that I'm being able to make connections with families and patients, as well as our frontline staff and our physician teams to impact change is probably one of my most exciting things. I think for me, professionally, some of the things that I want to work on with the teams is, how do we improve communication? How do we make the hospital a less scary place? how do we proactively and honestly communicate when things are happening in real time?
Therapeutic communication is definitely something that eases anxiety for families. So I'm sure them just getting to experience that type of input is making a difference.
I hope so.
Yeah, so I really appreciate. Thank you for giving those details. And since you have been involved with leadership from such a young age, are there challenges that come to mind that you've experienced due to being a young leader? And if so, how do you address them?
Absolutely, especially early on in my career. I think I'd reached an executive director role in my late 20s. And I was at a VP level position for a hospital in my really early 30s when most of my peers were in their 50s. And I think a lot of things happen during that time frame, right? When you walk into a room, people are looking at you, you look younger, you sound younger, you talk a little bit differently. And one of the most challenging things is building trust and confidence with your team. And that can be a little bit scary, especially when you're coming in and you're new and you know you're younger and you have less experience and you just have a different way of doing things. So I think that that has probably been one of the biggest challenges. The older that I've gotten, the more that I've established myself within different organizations, those things tend to go out the window. One of the things that I really try to do, especially professionally, is remain true to myself. Even at work, I am kind of known as a fun, lighthearted, very bubbly person. And I want to make sure that even though the work that we're doing is very serious, that I'm still finding joy and remaining authentic to myself and making sure that I operate in a way that ensures that I sleep at night. And you can always do things, especially in the professional work environment and corporate environments, where you feel like you're being pushed into a box and you have to behave in a certain way or talk in a certain way or dress in a certain way. And a lot of times that tends to stress people out and it tends to cause anxiety and it tends to really make you feel like you're on all the time and you're not being authentic. And that makes it hard to go home and turn off, right? If you're being authentic and you know that you're being true to yourself and your value system, it allows you, or it has allowed me, to enjoy my positions and really come from a heart-led leadership perspective.
In terms of all of the initiatives that come along with being in these very these very elevated positions where you kind of support all the people who are in your team, have there been times where you have had projects that didn't go exactly as planned? And in what ways do you make sure that the ending goal does happen?
Absolutely. There's always projects that don't go according to plan. One of the things that I learned really early on in my career is, especially in hospitals and hospital systems, a lot of times you have leadership teams and executive leadership teams, and a lot of times we're making decisions, creating programs and impacting or trying to lead change. We know there's an issue, we've identified it, our frontline staff have identified it, we just know that there's an issue, and we come up with these ideas as leaders. And what I've found is most of the time, those ideas aren't always not only the best received or well implemented. Because at the end of the day, your frontline staff and your frontline teams, those are the folks that are doing the work and know the systems and really understand the impact of the issue at hand. And so one of the things that I think is really important is making sure that you engage your frontline teams. I have learned that lesson the hard way of making sure that when we have an issue or a problem that we've identified, an area of opportunity, that we're going to our frontline teams and saying, hey, we've identified this issue. Are you seeing the same things? Or what are the biggest pain points in the work that you do day to day that you would like the leadership team to know about? Hearing directly from them and asking them, what do you think is the easiest solution? One of the things that I like to do is say, what do you think is the easiest solution that we can implement today to improve this? And then what is your magic wand solution? So if you had a magic wand, resources were unlimited, we had tons of money, we had tons of staff, we had tons of people to do this, how would you fix this problem that you've identified or that we believe that we've identified as a leadership team? And that is really where your sustainable solutions come from.
Wow, a lot goes into the methods behind achieving these like long-term goals.
Yeah.
Have you had any pushback from people in our own generation or younger? And if so, in what ways do you deal with this?
I think that pushback comes from all different generations. I don't think it's necessarily just pushback from folks that are older or younger or in the same generation as you. So I think that question's a little bit hard to answer. There's just pushback in general. It's not necessarily specific to any age range or age group. The one thing that I will say is that a lot of times when we implement changes and it is a systematic change and the process is a little bit different when it comes to technology, I find that younger generations are more apt to use technology, whereas maybe an older generation wants to use the older like paper formats or inputting systems, where the younger generations are very app minded. And so if it's not an app, what are we doing? Right? Everything needs to be an app on my phone, or wait, you want me to go back onto the computer and log in? I have to actually pull out my laptop. Those kinds of things. And I think that's really where innovation and progress and efficiency come into play.
You really have to tend to all different preferences.
Yeah.
And what advice would you give to young people who want to have the type of impact on their community groups such as you?
I think one of the most important things to take into consideration is to take risks. Take calculated risks, right? But just number one, do it. But know that there's risks involved. And even if it's scary or a little bit nerve-wracking, just do it anyways. Just do it. And do what you're passionate about. If you halfway feel like, oh yeah, I could do that, or yeah, that sounds like something I can get involved in, don't do it. Don't do it. There are when it comes to making change in your communities or making an impact, there's going to be so many people that are going to tell you, no, that's not a good idea, that'll never work, all of those things. And if you're on the fence, you're going to tend to listen to those people. But if you have so much drive and passion for whatever cause it is that you're working on, that is going to, number one, just help you ignore the naysayers, but also really stay motivated and focused, because in any project that you implement, there's going to be challenges. There's going to be bumps in the road. There's going to be times where you want to give up, and you have to really rely on your passion and your support system to move forward.
Similarly, earlier when you mentioned your mentor, Fiona, is there a certain way to meet and connect with mentors who are supportive and provide that type of perspective on which risks will get you to where you would like to be, or any tips in regards to that?
To finding a mentor specifically? One of the things that I think is really important, and it's hard to find a mentor, especially as a young person, right? Because a lot of times you see people that are in leadership roles and you're like, why would they want to talk to me? I'm just a student, or I'm a grad student, or I'm in my first year of work. What you'll find is a lot of folks really want to mentor and support younger generations, because we've all been there at some point in time. I think one of the most important things is to ask for those things, right? If you want to mentor, there's someone that you admire, there's someone whose work inspires you, ask them. Say, would you be open to having a mentor conversation with me? And not necessarily being my mentor, but just let's open the door and see if it's a fit for both of us. And then really clearly define before you meet with them, what does it look like for you to have a mentor? What do you want from a mentor? What are your expectations for a mentor? So if they've agreed to meet with you, say, hey, I'm really looking for a mentor, someone like you. I would like to be able to accomplish X, Y, and Z. I think that if you were to be my mentor, it would really be me asking for X, Y, and Z from you. Is that something that you agree on? Or is that something that feasible for you? And if they say no, okay, is there anyone that you know that might be interested in mentoring me? Are there any groups or recommendations for networking that you can provide me with? And you'll find that a lot of people are really receptive to that. Even the blind messages on LinkedIn, whether it's someone you know, or someone you meet at a community event and you just want to grab a cup of coffee with them. I think asking never hurts.
Well, thank you for that insight. And as a long-term advocate who has been involved for decades in large-scale positive social change, what do you find are the most impactful ways to engage with all of the people that you are surrounded with?
Genuine connection. I think that is like the most important thing, and being, again, authentic, right? Making sure that you're building these genuine connections, people trust you, you trust them, and that you're sharing your passion is going to be the most important thing. I think the other thing to really take into consideration is not only learning your why, but learning other people's why. Why is this work important to you? If someone stops you and wants to know what you're working on, and they're like, wow, that's interesting. What interests you about this? What information can I share with you? But always just remaining true to yourself and continuing on regardless of other folks and what they want to do. But finding common ground, right? So maybe you and I want to work on a project together, and I have a very specific vision for how this project's going to go, and you have a very different vision for how it's going to go. But maybe we need each other. And so how can we work together? How can we combine our forces? How can we really create something together, if that's an option, where we're both compromising a little bit, but feeling really confident to get the work done? And that's what I found in a lot of projects that I've worked on over the years is I have a very specific vision and someone else has a very different vision, but we can't accomplish our goals unless we work together. So we both got to give a little bit for the greater good. And knowing that being flexible is really, really important in making social change.
Aw, that type of attitude must make your like thought partners, coworkers be really excited to be there.
I hope so.
And I would like to give you some time just to give any shout outs to support groups, orgs, or people that matter deeply to you.
Absolutely. So first and foremost, CGI U. CGI U, I talk a lot about them, but they really did change my life. And at several points, they've changed my life in different ways, right? When I was a graduate student, by allowing me into this program, I was a small town kid who wanted to make a garden at the university. And being able to go to this huge conference and be a part of this community for change makers from across the world, I was able to meet folks that I would have never met in any other capacity and become friends with these people. So many of my CGI U friends, these are the folks that I call for professional, personal advice. They're my sounding boards. And I think CGI U, first and foremost, I can't say enough good things. This is not a plug for CGI U, but for those of you who are in college and want to make a change, create commitments to action, I definitely encourage you guys to apply and be a part of this program. It is life-changing for lots of different reasons, future opportunities, but the connections that you make. And as far as individuals, I think it's really hard to start to list them off, but my grandfather, Vinny Johl, he was everything to me, and he taught me so much about just life in general, was always my support system, was always happy to see me no matter what. He lived in my family. We lived in a Punjabi, very traditional, multi-generational home, and he was just everything. And I always want to make sure that I'm making him proud and doing right by him. So this garden and the work with CGI U has definitely helped with that. Obviously, my parents, my family, my friends, and then bosses. I've been really lucky. I've had a few really wonderful bosses that have believed in me and supported me and trusted me. They know who they are. So that's really been a great resource for me to have as well. And I think just my community in general, the people that I call on a day-to-day basis when things go wrong, or call to celebrate when things go right.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for sharing about you, your family, your coworkers, your team, everything. It was so lovely to hear. Is there anything else that you would like to add or share before we close out for today?
I just want to thank you guys for the opportunity. Feel free to share my information if there's students out there that watch this, or young folks that are watching this that would like a mentor or like some advice. Not that I can mentor everyone that comes through, but definitely you can share my email address and my contact information. I would love to just help in any way that I can. And I appreciate this opportunity to share. It's definitely been fun. And I appreciate the work that you guys are doing with awareness, and would love to hear more at a later time from you as well.
Well, thank you. We are so honored to have you, and appreciate everything that you shared today.
Thank you.